This is The Golden Rule with David Fischer. For the latest information about bail-ins, bailouts, the economic collapse, and much more, go to landmarkgold.com.
Welcome to The Golden Rule. This is David Fischer, podcast number 46. I'm the CEO of Landmark Capital, and we're going to talk about something that I've talked about quite a bit. And the reason we're going to talk about this again, the Dodd Frank Act, is because the House recently passed a bill. So it's imperative that we understand what was in the original bill, what is in the revised bill that passed the House, and will it go to the Senate, or, is this a good bill? Is this a bad bill? Things like that. So with that, they have a name for it. It's called the Financial Choice Act. We'll get into the Senate here right now. Likely it's going to be dead on arrival. The Senate is not going to pass this thing because more than 120 leading law professors and economists have sent a letter to Congress last month opposing a major piece of this. Concluding the major piece they're calling is the Orderly Liquidation Authority, or the OLA. I'll explain that. They're concluding that the elimination of the Orderly Liquidation Authority would be a grave mistake. So let's get into this bill. Since we're talking about the OLA, let's explain what that is. When we had a financial calamity in 2008, we didn't have an OLA in place. In other words, that is who's the entity is going to take the hit and how is the assets going to be liquidated. That was part of the problem. So they created a process called the Orderly Liquidation Authority. This relates to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They are the actual part of the entity that would be in the part of the process they would monitor, and the OLA, the actual entities that's doing the OLA, is no longer there. So this defaults and falls, unfortunately, on the back of the taxpayer. This confirms this. The main component of the bill originally, when it was passed in 2010 under President Obama, there's a few main components. One, it created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the entity that's supposed to do good. And like, for instance, there's a lady named Mrs. Brewer that her daughter passed away, and she inherited her daughter's credit card debt. She wasn't on the loan, or she wasn't on the account and wasn't a co-signer. So she's being harassed. She's 72 years old. She makes one phone call to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, it all goes away. So that's a good thing there. The Dodd Frank Act created it for that purpose. It also created the power of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has just as much, if not maybe more power than the Federal Reserve. And it's a private entity like the Federal Reserve. Doesn't get its funding from Congress through the normal appropriations committee, but gets its funding actually from the Federal Reserve. But not even the Federal Reserve has the authority to dictate the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, so we created a monster. So this bill, so back when this was created, this changed the legal ownership of our money, that the entity, the bank or the financial institution can seize your money. It has the legal authority, not the institution, but the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau would be the entity that would initiate this. It's called the bail-in. I wrote a whole report on it in a white paper in its 6th edition. But the bill here, one of the purposes of the bill is to defraying the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to lower its authority. And I think there's some goodness in it. But it also, the bill eliminates liquidity requirements for large banks. That's not a good thing. It also removes a rule that prohibits banks from investing in risky securities using clients' money. It's called the Volcker Rule. This bill that passed the House removes that. So it repeals the Volcker Rule. Now, banks that were previously prevented from using customers' deposits to conduct what you call proprietary trading or speculative trading in securities, where the bank would benefit. They call this even derivatives. That rule is now lifted. So this tells us that what was caused major contribution to the 2008 problem called derivatives that financial institutions were involved in. Now they can do that. They have a green light, and they can use people's money on deposit to use that money, not just the bank's money, but depositors' money, if this bill gets passed into the Senate and the president signs it into law. Crazy. Totally crazy. Under this bill, it also, some of the largest banks with the highest level of capital would be exempt from Dodd Frank's liquidity rules. Doesn't seem full of sense at all. Senseless, totally. Another thing that the bill does is it weakens the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in its authority. I think there's some benefit to that. But it also gives the president the ability over the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau instead of Congress. That doesn't sound too smart of a bill proposal. So, according to the Ben Bernanke, the previous Fed chairman, he says that the OLA, or the Orderly Liquidation Authority, is something that should be in the toolkit. It's the best way to reduce the odds of a future bailout. So, in other words, if they don't have this, then this creates the need for a bail-in. You don't have a process of an orderly liquidation authority. So this thing is riddled with some major challenges that I don't believe is in the best interest of our country. And, what it does is it does not eliminate the legal seizure of your money. That's a negative. Let's give it a scorecard. It doesn't create safety for Americans since it removes the OLA. That's another negative. It doesn't stop banks from using your money to leverage money in derivatives. That's a huge negative. 3 strikes, you're out. And that's what they should do, is throw this bill out, in my opinion. Now, there's a lot of things that they could do to fix this thing, but it's riddled with nonsense. The first bill was riddled with nonsense, and this one is just as bad. It really actually pushes towards another 2008 crisis. So I'm going to watch to see what happens if this goes through the Senate. I think it will be dead on arrival. They should revamp some of the things of Dodd Frank, but as it is, with nothing being passed, this will allow the government to be able to seize your money, your 401ks, your IRAs. If this bill gets passed and the Senate doesn't modify it, this still will allow the government to seize your IRAs, your bank accounts, your 401ks. And on top of that, it takes away the safety net to protect us from 2008 all again. So my vote is throw this thing out. Get back to the drawing board, create something that's going to benefit our country and protect the U.S. taxpayer in the meantime. So that's the quick update on the Dodd Frank Act. Want everybody to be aware of it. I've been talking about it on national radio. I'm giving the clarification of all the facts. I'm getting my news source from major stream news source, MSN Money, USA Today, CNN. It's real news. It's not fake news. It's not aimed at President Trump. It's none of that. It's just getting down to the brass facts of what this is all about. So this is why we highly encourage, roll over a portion of your IRA, your 401k into physical gold and silver and take possession of it without a tax liability. You can call my company and get the information on what we're talking about with the most recent bail-in report of Dodd Frank. And also you can learn on how to take possession of metals within your IRA by simply calling our company 877-448-2646, or you can go to our website at landmarkgold.com. Until next time, this is David Fischer, The Golden Rule, podcast number 46. Tune in to podcast number 47. I'm going to be talking about what happens when we have a stock market correction and how gold has related to that. So going to share about that. And if we have time, we're going to talk about what's going on in the state of Illinois. We might have a bankruptcy for the first time. Anyway, take care. Talk to you next time.
This has been another installment of The Golden Rule with David Fischer. To stay up to date and find out the latest information, go to landmarkgold.com.